Jeremy Clarkson recently said in an interview with Harry Metcalf that he thinks his Jaguar F-Type is peak car.
And I think there's such a thing as peak car. In the olden days, the controls were on the outside and they had running boards.
Yes.
Pretty terrible. And then they got to a point when they were very well made. They had sat-nav, they had air conditioning.
Yeah.
They reached a point when they were offering everything anybody could reasonably expect from a car.
Yes.
And then it's all now gone electronic and it's idiotic. Peak car, I think, came, and I can't quite pin it down, but about when that F-Type was made. About 10 years ago. If you were to buy a car from 10 years ago, it would be reliable, comfortable, refined, well-equipped, fast, relatively economical. 2015, if you were to buy... Was the original M2 out then? Because I really like the original M2.
Yeah.
That was an unbelievably good car. That probably is right there in peak car.
And this term, peak car, is one that keeps coming up in the car community. I think it's as a result of the fact that modern cars, while they have some advantages and they improve some things, they're also going backwards in other ways that people don't want. And I think everyone's searching for that special sauce which has all the modern improvements and none of the modern downsides. So my question today is a bit of a philosophical one. Is OG M2 peak car? And if not, when was peak car? Courtesy of my friend M Drives. He also makes videos. He's actually filming a video with my MX-5. That video and his channel in the description. What about the driving? Because this is where peak car, I think, falls apart. The newer you go, almost the worse cars drive. Let's get out on the road and talk about it. So how does this car feel on the right road? And importantly, how have the generations of car changed over time? Well, we've got to start with this. One of the big things that changed over time was the move to electric steering. Electric steering offers a lot of benefits. You know, if you're a car manufacturer and you have to integrate safety systems, electric steering is a great way to do that. Lane keeping systems that make sure that you don't veer out of your lane and die. The downside, if you enjoy driving, is that electric steering doesn't have as much communication. And what's the problem with not having communication? Well, it means when I turn, it feels computerized. It's a one-way conversation. You turn, car turns. Simple as. But there's no feedback. The purpose of a sports car is for them to tell you and communicate with you how much you're approaching the limit. Because of electric steering racks, modern cars don't do this. They don't tell you if you're about to lose grip. They also don't give you feedback from the road. They don't tell you what the road surface feels like. My MX-5 does this. If I go from one section of tarmac into the other, it communicates that change. This M2 unfortunately doesn't. And the newer M2, the one that I owned, was even worse, as they use more software to emulate what steering is trying to communicate, the worse the whole thing becomes. Okay, so steering has got worse over time. What about the chassis? One of the big advantages of modern cars is adaptive suspension. This M2 does not have adaptive suspension, but the later one, the generation that I owned, did. Now, the dream of adaptive suspension is that you can have a suspension that is both super comfortable when you're just getting to work or just trying to go somewhere, and also sharp and responsive when you want it to be. Adaptive suspension is another lie. If you've ever driven a good quality suspension from the likes of Öhlins, from the likes of Meister R, a high-end Bilstein kit, this car actually has Bilstein B16s, which are pretty good. A sophisticated suspension is just next level. It irons out all the bumps while also feeling firm and taut and just wonderful. And adaptive suspension can't compare. It's trying to do too many things. It's trying to be all things to all people and give you comfort and stiffness. And it can never dial in the damping or the spring rates for both. So it's always a compromise. And that's not to say that E46 generation, E92 generation had great suspension. They didn't. But a quality suspension setup cannot be replaced by adaptive suspension unless you get into the McLarens of the world. Okay, so that's suspension. What about engines? Engines have got better, right? They have more power. That they certainly do. More power is useful, but the way they've got that power is using turbochargers. That's the only way you can get a lot of power out of a modern car. In OG M2's case, it does make a really good noise. That part of it is definitely a little bit special. Put it in sport mode, open up the exhaust. It sounds amazing, right? What's the downside of turbochargers? Throttle response. When I put my foot down, I don't immediately get all the power the engine can deliver. It has to take a breath and then take off. A naturally aspirated engine is sweeter. A naturally aspirated engine is more interactive because the engine provides feedback more rapidly. In a turbocharged car like this, you put your foot down, the tires light up, and there's no delicacy to it. There's no build-up, there's no progression. When you press the throttle, she moves. And nobody is doubting this about these cars. But the thing a lot of people that have had fast cars will tell you is that after you've pressed an accelerator pedal quite hard, about 10 or 15 times, you kind of get over it. And the things that make a car truly exceptional to drive are not how much power it has, but in fact how it feels.
One point that I failed to mention while I was driving the OG M2 is weight. And weight in a car is negative for so many reasons. People just think it's going to accelerate slowly, and yes, that's one of the problems, but it's also, it needs bigger brakes because the brakes have to work much harder. It needs bigger tires because the tires have to work much harder. It's just another spiral. I think it originally came because car manufacturers wanted to make their cars have more interior space. They wanted cars to be bigger on the road, more imposing, more impressive. They've just ballooned and ballooned over time into what I think is too big. They've gone past the usefully large size and they're now into just ridiculously large and doesn't fit in places. Drive a car at 1.1, 1.2 tons. The driving experience is so much more pure. There's a reason lighter cars have better steering feedback, and it's not because of the weight, at least not directly. It's because the steering components, like the steering rack, don't have to be as heavy duty to make the wheels turn under that amount of weight. If this isn't your first Mick Drives Cars video, maybe subscribe.
One thing we should definitely talk about, because it is very relevant, is the interior quality, the technology. This is probably the biggest benefit. Things like having Apple CarPlay, Android Auto wirelessly, things like having a comfortable cabin with, good materials and nice feeling things is a big benefit of modern cars. Older cars didn't used to feel good. They felt cheap and rattly unless you were buying like really expensive cars.
And something people always forget about is that cars of older generations were upgradable. If you wanted to, you could just rip out the stereo and put a new one in. And as technology improves, you can just keep upgrading the stereo, and now you have like wireless CarPlay and screens and everything you could possibly want. There was a certain point in cars where they stopped being upgradable because the screen and all the car's computers were all integrated and you just couldn't separate any of it. You couldn't replace it. There's also something to be said for technology running away with itself. Car manufacturers getting a little bit silly in what they can do and just honestly doing too much. Some of the safety systems are actually quite useful. I do like adaptive cruise control. Lane keeping assist drives me absolutely mad. It's a feature that must be turned off every time you drive the car. Like if you get in a modern BMW, 20 button presses every time you want to drive the car. You pull up to a petrol station, you turn the car off, you fill it up, but you gotta do it again. But that's only really a problem on the 2020 and up. The fact that cars need to have speed limiters that beep if you go 2 miles an hour over the speed limit. So that's all the things that have gone wrong over time with cars. Now it's time to determine when was peak car. I've got a list here with a bunch of cars from different generations, and next door I have a whiteboard that we're gonna put these generations on. Let's start with the 80s. In the 80s you had Ferrari F40, Porsche 944, E30 generation, BMW M3, the original Golf GTI, and you had really special cars like the Peugeot 205 GTI. What did all these cars have in common? Well, they all had soul. They all had great steering. They all had great feedback. They were also all noisy. You wouldn't want to drive these cars long distance. They had no tech. So while these cars were really good, and for enthusiast drivers, you probably love a lot of cars from the 80s, don't think they can be peak car. Okay, what about the 90s? Well, you had the McLaren F1, 993 generation Porsche, the last of the air-cooled Porsches. Lotus Elise came out in the 90s. Lotus Elise to me is a special car because it's still a benchmark for steering feel, feedback, and how a car feels on the road. You had the Holy Trinity, R32, 33, 34 GTR, RX-7 FD, Mark IV Supra. Very, very special cars. You now had E36 M3 and the introduction of the first generation MX-5. The car still had a lot of soul. They still had good steering. They still had good feedback. They did have more power now, but these cars were still annoying to live with. These cars still didn't really have tech, at least not sat-nav. Air conditioning was still not a given. These weren't comfortable cars. Okay, so unfortunately, although this is one of my favorite eras of car, don't think we can call this peak car. Into the 2000s, 996 generation Porsche 911, Honda S2000, E46 BMW M3, the Nissan 350Z, the WRX STI, special enthusiast cars. And in the case of cars like the E46 M3, the 350Z, these were cars that were getting to the cusp of solving NVH, noise, vibration, harshness. These were cars that you could take on a road trip 500 miles and you wouldn't hate your life. There's some serious improvements here. But they still retained good steering. They still retained feel and feedback. I think this was an excellent era for cars. All of this stuff was still true, especially in power's case. E46 M3 had, 350 horsepower, more power than you would ever need. Honest, enjoyable cars. They now often had reasonable to good NVH. They often had a rudimentary sat-nav, which you would not use today, but you could quite easily rip it out and it would have a double DIN slot to put in your own sat-nav. So I'm going to call that plus or minus tech. But the foundations, the things that make cars enjoyable to drive, still all there. They hadn't had all the modern downsides yet. I think this is a candidate for peak car. Let's get into 2005 to 2010. Audi R8, 997 generation Porsche, one of my favorite Porsches of all time. E92 M3, Nissan GTR. And you had, a personal favorite, the Mark III or NC generation Miata. You still had old school cars. Mark III Miata is an old school feeling car. But then you had the new era coming in as well. The GTR, for example, the amount of technology to make that car go quickly was unreal. All of these things largely stayed true. Power was even higher. E92 M3 had 420 horsepower. I do think they were starting to lose some of the soul. Mainly because, and this is a big negative, started to get into their weight gain era. But they still had some of the good stuff. They still had feedback and feel. Maybe the steering was starting to get a little bit worse just because of the weight. I think NVH was solved during this time. I think from here on out, NVH is always great. Actually, I think here it's even excellent. But it was already really good right about here. And this is the generation where technology started to become integrated. So you'd have some cars where you could upgrade the tech, some cars where you couldn't. I think if you're somebody that wants a quieter car, doesn't mind dealing with the weight, and likes the power, this is also a candidate for peak car. 2010 to 2015, McLaren P1. Can you believe it was that long ago? 991 generation Porsches. And this is where things took a nosedive. A Porsche with electric steering. F82 M4, special car, loved by many. I think it will go down as one of the classics of all time. BMWs now had turbos. A lot of cars of this generation were going automatic. If you look on the classifieds, very hard to find manual examples of these cars. Of course, electric steering for the first time in a BMW M car as well. GT86, there were some companies that were still holding on to the last little bit of engagement and feedback. You had the introduction of the Golf R, cuzzy. You can hate it if you want, but it's a special car, it's a good car. This is where it all went downhill. The cars had no soul. We went to electric steering across the board. We lost all our feedback. We gained even more power, but unfortunately it was too much on the road and it used turbos. Manuals became hard to find. The cars got even heavier. However, NVH was still fantastic. The tech at this point reached what I would call you don't really need to upgrade it territory. It's probably still usable today. You could probably get to a postcode, but we lose all the things that I love about cars. So I don't think this can be peak car for me. 2015 to 2020. This is the part of the video where I lose the will to live because there's so many special cars in this list that all suck. People won't like me saying that. McLaren 720S, Porsche 992 Generation 911, OG M2, Jaguar F-Type, Jeremy's car, the Giulia Quadrifoglio, Mark 7.5 GTI and R, the Mark 5 Supra, the ND Miata. Every single car on that list has electric steering, does not communicate, and is fast. The weight got even worse. The power got even more. All of this stuff kind of stayed the same, but I will say NVH was solved. I think if you buy a car from 15 to 20, whatever type of car or size of car, whether it's a small hatchback, large hatchback, saloon car, SUV, I think if the car is from those years, it will have peaked in terms of how quiet it can be for that body shape. So for just traveling around, this is a great era for cars. Tech was also fantastic. You had everything you could possibly want. However, in 2018 is when they started doing some of this lane keep assist and other rubbish. So we're also going to give minus tech. And although there's a lot of great cars here, I don't think this is peak car. And then the 2020 and up. Honestly, this might be the end of the car industry, at least the enthusiast segment of it. It makes me sad. I haven't written many cars here because I hate all of them. But you have cars like G82 M4, G87 M2, the Mark 8 Golf GTI and R. It makes me actually upset. It had touch-sensitive buttons on the steering wheel. What car manufacturer that makes cars for enthusiasts thought that was a good idea? Every car in this generation has speed limit bongs and lane keeping rubbish, and it's not it. It's not it. 2020, I'm not even going to talk about. I'm just going to do this. There's really no point. So we're left with basically the 2000s. You would have a car that had everything you could possibly want. It might have reasonable tech. If it doesn't, you can upgrade it. It probably has hydraulic steering and is enjoyable to drive. It probably has a reasonable amount of power. It probably has reasonable NVH. And you don't start to sacrifice this stuff here, which is really important to me. I think for me, that was peak car. 00 to 05. E46 M3 generation. I really thought it would be in here somewhere. I will say a flaw of this is that the way I've done the cars is based on the release date year. So for example, E46 M3 came out in 2002, but E46 M3 ran until 2006. In the same way, E92 M3 came out 2006 but ran into 2012. All of these kind of stretch a little bit forward. My name's Mick, I drive cars, and apparently old cars are better. Peace.